Well, we begin now with the latest phase in the battle to retake Mosul. U.S.-backed Iraqi forces this week launching an air and ground offensive to drive remaining Islamic State militants out of western Mosul. VOA's Jesusemen Oni has our report on the 4-month-old operation to liberate Iraq's second largest city.
Hundreds of troops in tanks and armored vehicles backed by air power rolled across the desert towards western Mosul early Sunday morning. Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi announced the start of the battle in a televised speech, calling it a new dawn.
We call on our brave troops to start the push to liberate the rest of the city and to liberate people from the oppression and terrorism of Islamic State.
It's the latest phase in a 4-month-old effort to free Mosul from Islamic State. Last month, Iraq declared eastern Mosul fully liberated. However, ISIS has continued to launch attacks there, including a suicide bombing in the hours following the start of Sunday's offensive. The United States has been providing air and logistical support throughout the operation. Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis says that will not change.
The U.S. forces continue in the same role that they were in East Mosul, and the coalition forces are in support of this operation. And we will continue, as you know, with the accelerated effort to destroy ISIS.
Essentially. And to bring us up to date now on the coalition efforts to destroy Islamic State, we are joined from London via Skype by VOA reporter Jamie Dettmer. Welcome, Jamie. And we're joined here in Washington by international broadcaster Khalid Fatah from VOA's Kurdish Service. It's good to have both of you gentlemen on the program. Lots to talk about. So, Jamie Dettmer, you've spent some time reporting in both Iraq and Syria and even in Mosul, so I'll start with you. This has been a long and bloody battle. It's been going on for 4 months now. Are Iraqi forces any closer to actually liberating Mosul?
Well, of course they are. It took them more than 3 months to take East Mosul. Some people thought it would take less than that. And most predictions by Western analysts and by military people I've talked to think that West Mosul could take longer. And there are good reasons for that. It's more heavily populated than East Mosul. There's probably more of a sympathetic residence in West Mosul towards the Islamic State. There are narrow roads in West Mosul, which means that armored vehicles and tanks have less maneuverability than they had in East Mosul. They're likely to face as stiff, if not stiffer, resistance from the Islamic State. I mean, from my experience, even when you take a neighborhood, as in East Mosul, it's not over. By nighttime, you have Islamic fighters back. You're facing suicide bombings, you're facing booby traps, roadside bombs, and snipers. And they have this network of tunnels that suddenly they appear out of. I covered Bashika, the Battle of Bashika with the Peshmerga, and the next day we still were confronted by suicide bombers.
Jamie, what's the significance of taking the airport?
It was an early prize to them. This was a key objective to take early. They took it in a few hours, as well as an adjacent military barracks. There are no buildings there at the airport anymore. ISIS destroyed them, and it's damaged the runway. But it was a key objective for the Iraqi forces to get that quickly. They're now in 2 West Mosul districts. They're punched into them, but they're facing in the south some difficulty navigating past trenches and a high berm.
Khalid, let me get you into this conversation. Kurdish forces make up the second largest fighting force there in Mosul. What is the role for Peshmerga and Kurdish fighters?
Well, at the beginning of the Mosul liberation operation, there was an agreement between the central Iraqi government and the Kurdish government and U.S. and coalition led by U.S. So the agreement was for the Kurdish Peshmerga forces to first start advancing in the east of Mosul and take and control the territories in that area, which is mainly is multi-ethnic area, Kurds, Arab, Yazidis, Shabak, and Christian. Right now, the Peshmerga forces is their role right now to support Iraqi forces in east of Mosul more than participating directly in a fight against ISIS.
Peshmerga have been remarkably restrained in helping the Iraqi forces. What's in it for the Kurds?
Well, for the Kurds, Mosul is a strategic area controlled by ISIS. It threatens stability in Kurdish region. This is the main reason, and that was been one of the statement published by the Kurdish government saying it's ISIS being in Mosul is threatening our security. ISIS attempt many act of violence in Kurdish area. So liberating Mosul, I think, in terms of the security of the Kurdish region is important. Also, it's threat to all Iraq. And Kurd, they don't want to stay in the back when this particular operation started, because in political way, it's also important for the Kurds who control Mosul or who control half Mosul. They will have a big decision in the future of the area.
Right. And Jamie, let me ask you this question. ISIS militants clearly outgunned and outnumbered there. Strategically, what kind of tactics are they using? How have they lasted as long as they have?
Well, fighting in an urban area is never easy for an offensive force. So they've had 2 years really to build up a stockpile of booby traps and suicide bombs, which they're deploying. I mean, one of the most extraordinary things I saw in Bashika, just outside Mosul, when the Peshmerga were attacking there, was 7 massive suicide bombs, car bombs, going off one after the other. Right. These are large bombs. They've got snipers as well who are taking a toll. So it's basically a stiff resistance in an urban area, which always favors defenders and not attackers. And also, you have to remember, the Iraqis are trying to keep the casualties, civilian casualties, as well as their own casualties down. The Islamic State doesn't care if they lose fighters or if civilians aren't killed. So they've got no, if you want, kid gloves on them.
Right. Khalid, once coalition forces and Iraqi forces actually stabilize what's going on in Mosul, what happens next in Mosul? Does it become now a political issue? Because there's a lot of sectarian kinds of...
If it's not observing right now, but in coming days after liberation of the entire Nineveh province, including all the way to the Syrian border, there will be a problem if the Iraqi government not step up its effort to reach an agreement. There are several forces in the area. They are Shia militia, Iraqi army, Sunni, Turkish army, plus Kurdish. This area, it's very important for all of them, and they have to get an agreement. For first time, Iraqi Prime Minister today and yesterday he submitted a statement asking for support from people inside, and that we're gonna, if anyone of his surrounded himself to the Iraqi forces, they will have a fair trial. Otherwise, supported the ISIS, they were gonna get killed. So there is, I think, it's the first step toward to create kind of reconciliation among all the parties.
Jamie, in the last few seconds that I have, what do you see for the future of Mosul after this operation is done? Do you expect more trouble ahead?
Well, my colleague points out that there could well be. Yes, there had been an attempt to get an agreement before the battle started, but the Americans, the Obama administration kind of gave up on that because they couldn't get any agreement. No, I mean, there's going to be major disagreements about how Mosul is governed, how to reconcile the different sects, who should control not just the city, but also there's a disputed area outside with the Kurds and Christians and Yazidis. No, there could be some very serious problems.
Gotcha. We'll be hearing from you again. Thank you so much to our correspondents, Jamie Dettmer and Khalid Fatah.